Welcome to the first ever AfroTech Conference presented by Blavity.
AfroTech, I am stoked to be here. Stoked. Can I get a show of hands? How many of you guys are aspiring entrepreneurs? Haven't yet started, looking to start? What about just started their companies within 6 months? Nice, nice. Okay, cool. So for context, I started my first company 4 to 5 years ago, but it was by no means the traditional startup path, right? I was going to school for jazz, right, as a jazz musician. And on the side, though, I was working as a doorman because I come from, my parents are immigrants, and I grew up in a broke family. We grew up right, but we grew up broke. And so we had to be financially independent fairly early, and I'm sure that we're no strangers to that situation. But it was in this pocket of time working as a doorman that I often say opening up doors for people open up doors for me, right? And I was working with these folks, and I took so much pride in doing what I did and doing it really well. So I would learn your names, your kids' names, your pets' names. I would have everything ready for you. And it was this genuine disposition that eventually had one of the residents offer me a business opportunity. And he said, "John, you seem like a smart kid. What do you do with your time?" I said, "I don't know, Facebook, like try to get at girls, the usual." And he said, "Okay, why don't I show you the value of time?" He said, this guy's a self-made millionaire, and he made his money through a chain of having 18 dry cleaners. So he said, "Okay, I'm gonna offer you access to my facility. I'll give you wholesale rates without you having wholesale volume. Convince someone to give you their clothes, and you make the difference." So this sweater I have on would cost me, as a regular guy, $6 to dry clean. He would charge me $2. I'd make the spread. I said, "Okay, I can do that." So I started my first business with a cheap briefcase, cheap business cards, and cheap flyers, and I would go to other doormen in Harlem and I'd say, "Hey, my name is John Henry, and I know that you're the key to the building because I'm a doorman too." And to sweeten the pot, I'd slip them 20 beans for every customer they got me. Because residents, when they're complaining, when they're frustrated about things, they go to the doorman, of all people. So this is how the business begun, and eventually, through another resident, I got an introduction to the film and the TV industry. So eventually, we carved a niche out in that space, servicing the wardrobe for big productions like Law & Order, Boardwalk Empire, The Wolf of Wall Street, Jay-Z, the Barclays Center, Will Smith, and so on. And it was throughout this 2-year journey before we were eventually snagged up that I learned the real fundamentals of what it means to be in business, right? So you hear a lot about product market fit and accelerators, and I run one, so I'm allowed to make fun of them. And you hear a lot of talk about the marketing and all the savvy stuff, but that comes secondary to your hustle, right? So an entrepreneur with relentless desire all these things become revealed to you. And so all the tough lessons, like I've been sued, I've sued back. I have spent thousands of dollars on marketing that I thought was really cool and effective, but in reality it was just direct mailers, right? And I spent all my money on that. I've learned how to hire people. I had to fire people, right? There were some weeks where I was under so much stress that I was literally bleeding from my nose because I couldn't make payroll that week. There were other weeks where I was laughing to the bank, right? And so there's this fluctuations when you run this business. And with this panel, with this discussion, I want to take a moment to highlight the very real tough shit that entrepreneurs go through when they're founding a company. And to do that, I'm going to bring up my panelists. If you guys would help me welcome our 3 panelists for our talk. Come on up. Hey. What's going on, homies?
Yo.
Let's kick this off right. We'll go through maybe a 1.5 minute, 2-minute, brief, concise intros. Give the crowd a sense here of what you do and what's been important to you in your journey as an entrepreneur so far. Starting with you.
Absolutely. My name is Emeka Anen. I'm a founder and CEO of a company called Throne. Throne is a company that's focused on building solutions for the streetwear and sneaker community. We started as a bunch of passionate sneaker enthusiasts, and we felt like we had a deep insight into some of the opportunities in the space that may not have necessarily been top of mind for other creators and entrepreneurs out there. And so, we really thought that just by leveraging our different backgrounds and unique implications of technology that we could bring some unique value to the space. And so, yeah, is that,
Well,
is that
what does Throne actually do?
Yeah, so our initial platform is a marketplace for peer-to-peer selling of sneakers. We are, I can talk more about it as we get deeper in.
Sure.
But yeah, we are in that growth phase, so I'm excited to share more about what we're building.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm O'Dane. I work for a company that buys and sells Apple equipment, and we sell on a few platforms like eBay and Amazon. We also sell wholesale, and I've been with the company for a year now, and my role day-to-day is just to make sure that we're selling everything the best way we possibly can sell it, getting the best prices, just making more money for the company and growing the company as much as I can.
Awesome.
Okay.
Andrea?
And my name's Andrea, and I'm a seller on eBay. And I've been selling on eBay for about 10 years now. I started actually by selling my son's outgrown clothes. I had a coworker. I used to work for Macy's for 15 years. I was a media buyer. And I was trying to figure out what to do. I didn't have a lot of friends that had kids at that time, so I was trying to figure out what to do with his outgrown clothes. And it was nice stuff that I've always had a knack for finding, high quality items, at really cheap prices. So she said to me, why don't you sell it on eBay? And I thought, eBay, who's gonna buy his, stuff on eBay? Who's gonna buy his clothes? And so that's how I kind of started. I started selling little pieces here and there, and I soon realized I was making a lot more than what I had initially paid for it. So I kind of ventured out into different areas. I sold designer jeans, I sold clothes and whatnot, and now currently, which I've been doing for the last few years, is I've been selling designer, mid-luxury handbags, like Michael Kors, Coach, Dooney, Kate Spade. I mean, I've seen a lot of the bags that I actually sell. I've seen a lot of y'all carrying it, so that's what I do.
Awesome. So I want to just jump right in to, I always like focusing on the challenges, right? And I think that when an entrepreneur shares what their current challenges are at the moment, that shows a lot about where they're at in their stage and how it is that they can think through problems. And so I'd love to hear, and start with you, Mecca, about what are your current challenges this moment with growing your platform, and then also perhaps what were some of the challenges, the make or break ones when you first started?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think just to make it helpful, when you're starting something, whatever that is, you're excited about that big picture, or you're excited about what you see this being at its full point of maturation. But then you have to take steps and break it down and say, well, what does it look like in its initial iteration? Mm-hmm. Or where's my end? Where do I get started? And what should I be focusing on today and optimizing for today so that tomorrow is a reality, right? And so that's, I'd say, a challenge in some ways. Sure. Because as you're focusing on that and really optimizing towards that one goal, you can't lose sight of that bigger picture. And ultimately, I think success looks like when you're able to make that transition, right? Oh, my thesis was right. I was able to start here, and now I'm able to go there. But man, I need to make sure that I can do it in a way that's, it's natural, it's authentic, and it makes sense for the community, for our business objectives, and for our users. And so I'd say that today, that's probably my biggest challenge, right? We've been fortunate in that we've started something. We're excited about where it is, but we're navigating the growth to the next step.
I just want to build on that for a quick second. I want to add some concreteness to that. So you have a peer-to-peer marketplace that sells sneakers.
Yes.
Right? Used sneakers or new sneakers?
It's resale, so I mean it's new sneakers, but they've been purchased at a secondary.
And you guys have gotten a bit of funding and so forth.
Yeah.
How about a round of applause for that? Hey,
thanks. Yeah.
So, but take me to like day like 1 through 10, right? Like when you had this idea,
Yeah.
right? Are you technical?
No, I'm
So
not
you're not technical,
No.
so a lot of us can relate here. I'm not technical, and I built a tech company.
Yeah.
And so like it's a common challenge, it's a common question that's burning in a lot of the folks' minds here. So how did you go about going from idea to like the very first iteration of the tech product? What was that like?
Man, so guess me like go back in time. So it days 1 through 10. I mean,
not literally.
it literally started as like, hey, this is something that I think is interesting. Let me talk to other people whose ideas that I respect and see if they also think it's interesting. And then you get some like early signs of validation. And then in our experience, man, like the first product we threw out, it was terrible. It was so bad. But the community responded to it. And so it was absurd that like, you know, we would introduce it to the users and community members, and people were downloading it. And it was crazy. I'm gonna like maybe post old mock-ups of it. It was insane. But those are mock-ups that I made in like PowerPoint, right? So like, you know, it started from there, and you know, as you're learning and accelerating at like, you know, understanding tools that are available, you kind of mature in the way you do things.
Sure.
But yeah, the first step I think from us was just to get something out there that makes the conversation more concrete.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And it makes it easier, I think, to onboard your first, you know, product champions and people that are gonna.
That's the nugget that I wanted to extract there, because I think a lot of times, you know, aspiring founders are faced with kind of analysis paralysis, and you think that the first version needs to be awesome. But Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn, he says, if your version 1.0 looks great, you launch too late, right? So it's like, put it together how you can to form the dialogue, and then from there you build. So Dane, over to you. We share a commonality in our story. We both left school, which is like by far the riskiest thing I've ever done, to go ahead and jump in the workplace and make it happen. Can you talk a little bit about like what was the motivation behind that? And do you think you made the right decision, or talk to us about it?
I was just working at the company for a little bit, and our boss, he thinks big, and he was trying to start to grow the company more. He needed people that he knew had the same passion he had, because he too left school to start a company. So we kind of connected on that sense. And he just sat me down and asked me. I thought about it long and hard. My mom didn't like it that much, but
No kidding.
after a while, I thought about it, talked to my folks at church, of course, and I saw the long term of it, as this is a company that's growing and building, and one day it could be something. Back then it was only 3 of us, now it's 8 of us. So the company's grown, we've moved to a bigger warehouse, so the growth is there, and the opportunity for me to be a high up employee, contributing to the company, being someone that's making policies, someone that's bringing change, instead of just being an employee that doesn't know who the boss is, just follows orders. I'm in that room making decisions that can shape the companies and direct the company to where we want to take it. So that's the way that I have to weigh in, like, do I want to do this, or do I want to wait and go through school and get a job, or can I just jump right in? And it was honestly the best decision I've ever made. It's been fruitful. I've learned a lot. I said to all my friends, I feel like I'm in a one-on-one class with a teacher, Business 101.
Right.
It's one-on-one. We have meetings every day, just me and him. And I think it was a good decision.
Yeah, I respect that. Can we just, that's some real stuff. And it highlights on a point that I've been making more and more frequently as I do more and more speaking, and that is because entrepreneurship now is glorified, I feel like there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there. Like, there are a lot of people who are not set up, like, just their genetic makeup, they're not entrepreneurs. And I feel like there's this pressure to go out and start a company just for the sake of starting a company's sake, and TechCrunch with all these sensational headlines. But in reality, personally, I think self-awareness is the most important thing. And right now, you're self-aware enough to know, you like to play a supporting role. You're in a role of leadership. You're helping make decisions. And I think having a supporting player who knows, where they stand, where they like to be, is 10 times more valuable than an entrepreneur who's not really an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So going over to Andrea, can you talk to us about, so you're in e-commerce, right? The first days of selling, what were some of the aha moments that you had that really kind of, you would say, looking back, kind of helped you break through?
Okay, there was, I guess, a few. Like I said, I started, selling more part-time when I was working at Macy's back in 2004, and then in 2009, the company decided to move all our regional offices to New York. So it was kind of like, for me, okay, do or die. It's like, do I try to move my son, who's raised in the South, to New York where I don't know anyone, or try to grow this part-time, which was doing really well, into a full-time endeavor. Like I said, it was kind of a do or die. And I started, like I said, doing, I would sell Abercrombie and Fitch and True Religions and Sevens and all that. And I, one of my first lessons was just because someone obviously, I would do a lot of research and try to find authentic, obviously clothes to resell, because on eBay, and I sell 100% on eBay, it has to be, authentic. And I got caught up. I lost a lot of money, thousands of dollars, with buying merchandise that was not authentic, which got stuck at customs, and I had to, kind of walk away from that. So, but instead of getting frustrated and kind of, just leaving the business alone, I kept brainstorming and thinking, what can I sell that I know that's kind of in my wheelhouse, that I'm kind of an expert in, that, I'm a woman, so a woman can appreciate, I can make a good profit on. I don't have to really deal with a lot of returns and things like that. And I kind of had like handbags. So, that was kind of my other aha moments of, stay in your lane, so to speak. Because I have a lot of people asking me, what should they sell and how I got started and whatnot. And I would say, I can't tell you that, but, it can be very successful, but kind of stick with something that you're an expert in. Like I wouldn't sell iPads or O'Dane over here or Apple products, because although I use them, that's just not my field. And I can look at purses and I can kind of just, even from a photo at this point, pick out okay, that's not real, that's a counterfeit or whatnot from across the room. So that's because this is my area of expertise at this point. So yeah.
That's awesome.
I see you nodding here, Megan. Did you have any expertise in sneakers when you got started, or do you agree with staying in your lane?
I agree with becoming an expert in your field, and so I was nodding because everything she said made sense. But yeah, I think that whenever you're setting out to build anything or do anything new, if you want to do it at a high level, I think it requires really immersing yourself in the space. Yeah. And so if you're looking from across the room and you can spot the defects in a fake purse, that's just an example, I think, of really knowing literally every detail and every component of your product, of your business, of your service.
And
so
you knowing every detail is likely what got you to the point where investors felt comfortable putting money in. I'd like to know what was that point where you initially started fundraising and you were getting, as many entrepreneurs do, the comments like, dude, you're not there just yet. When you get here, come talk to us. What was that here? What did you feel? What were the metrics that you feel you had to focus on?
Well, it's an interesting process, because I mean, it's also it's about yes, having the right metrics and having the right numbers to talk about and present. It's about finding the right partner, because it's also a dating process.
Partner as in the investor or co-founder?
As an investor, right? Like you want someone who understands what you're doing and has the same level appreciation for it that you do. I think it's the best case scenario. And so I guess that moment for us was it was the alignment of like numbers looking good and compelling from a metric perspective, but then also speaking to people that understood and appreciate the business, right? So, you know, our round was led by the founder of eBay, right? So like,
wow.
it makes sense. Like he started eBay, our business is a peer-to-peer component, and he saw the business and understood it. So I think it was a synergy of those things happening at the same time.
Does anyone want to build off of numbers? And like, for instance, so Dan, you manage now the sales component, right? What is, in your experience, the number one thing that you guys can do to drive sales? I think oftentimes startups, and it's peculiar because it's almost what is the word? It's like, it's an oxymoron that a lot of companies start and they're not focused on making money in the next 6 minutes, right? And I personally really favor revenue generating businesses. I've invested in 10 companies so far, and all of them have this common theme where they're focused on actually, you know, they're focused on getting to the point where they don't need to raise capital. And so as a person now who's growing the sales and the pricing factor section of your company, what do you focus on to drive that?
I'd have to disagree with these guys about staying in one area. I think you should become an expert, but then once you're an expert in that field, expand. So we started selling wholesale, mainly laptops, iPads. We got really good at that, so we expanded to phones. Started mostly on eBay. We got really good at eBay. We expanded to Amazon and Rakuten and other websites. So it's just always look for ways to grow. Once you become good at something, you become comfortable, and you have to make yourself uncomfortable. So just see what you're good at, become an expert at that, and then expand to other areas so you could grow as much as you can. With the numbers, I would just say try to sell what's hot. Because right now we sell Apple because we know everyone buys Apple. So it's just the easiest thing to sell right now.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm just curious, because it's on the top of my mind. How did you meet the founder of eBay? How did you even get a chance to pitch him?
That's a great question. Through you know, our advisory board.
In the room?
Could be in the room. I don't know if Jason's around here, but yeah, through our advisory board, yeah, it was just a natural evolution, I think, of meeting people, and this is hopefully helpful. I think as you meet people and develop relationships along your journey, each person you meet could be your next biggest advocate, and understanding that, and the power of really being authentic in developing relationships. So.
As an eBay seller, Andrea, do you deal a lot with relationships as well, or is it mostly just staying heads down and focusing on growing that biz?
A little bit, yeah. Initially, when I first started doing the handbags, I developed relationships with a lot of department stores all across the U.S. And because I bought in such great volume, they would give me really bigger discounts than the average person. So that was definitely 100% based on our relationships. And also working for Macy's for many years, I knew that it wasn't going to last. Them being able to give me the discounts that I needed in order to make a profit, I just knew that at some point it was going to. The gig was going to be up.
Sure.
Even though they weren't doing anything, they weren't. There was always with approval and whatnot. But I just know numbers-wise, it wasn't going to work because I was buying in such volume. And then I started, I found some liquidation sites, and, kind of full circle moment now, one of the sites that I use is Macy's Liquidation, which I didn't even know when I worked for Macy's existed, and every single thing that they sell in their store, down to furniture and pots and sheets and whatnot, is on this site.
And they just sell it like super cheap?
Yeah, it's an auction, just very similar to eBay, and you bid on the auctions and you get like lots of whatever,
Sure.
I just do handbags for now, so some of the lots could be thousands, pieces, and for really cheap, couple dollars for like, if it was like clothing or whatnot, but anyways, whatnot. So yeah, and then another relationship I've kind of developed is really with, my UPS and my USPS drivers, which has been so important. Even when I was out there, we were waiting to come on, and my USPS driver called me. She's like, "Okay, I'm at your house." So I was like, I've got packages for you. What do you want me to do? And I was like, "Okay, I can open my garage remotely." So I was like, "Okay, well, let me open it, and you could put it in my garage or whatnot." So we have a great relationship. When I go away, I buy her gifts. Give her Christmas gifts and my UPS guy, but I ship USPS.
UPS secondary.
Yeah, so it's great. Yeah, so that was something I felt I had to develop. So we have
I love that.
Borderline friends, I would say.
That's just hustle. Like what I'm trying to do with this discussion is touch on just on a high level on the big areas, the challenges of growing businesses. Yeah. And so I want to get to marketing in a second, but before we do, I want to hear from you around being a solopreneur. Right? I've been there. It's incredibly hard.
Yes.
Right? Like I had an assistant named Lisa, but it was really just me. Right? And when they would call in, I'd be like, "Oh, she's not in at the moment." And I had a 212 cell phone number, but in reality, I went to AT&T. Or I had a 212 number, but I went to AT&T and I slipped in 200 beans into the table so I can get it. So people thought that they were calling a landline, and I looked like an official business, but it was just a one-man army.
Yeah.
And the odds are stacked against you.
Absolutely.
When you're a small startup team and you're maybe a team of 2 to 3 people, you have to match the output of teams 3 times your size.
Absolutely.
And with a lot more money than you. And then in addition, on top of that, if you're a solo founder, it's just you. And you're forced to face the catch-22 here, right? Because all the bright people that you want, probably in comfortable 9-to-5s or starting their own companies, you can't afford to hire them because you're not at that point where you can pay them. You can say, "Hey, I'll take you on for equity," but what does equity, mean when you're just starting out?
Yeah.
And so you have to wear a lot of hats. Tell me about some of the most dire challenges about being a solopreneur. Maybe some of the folks in the crowd here can take some nuggets away.
Well, I would say probably the number one thing is if I don't sell, I don't eat. And that's something I had to really reinforce with my son, who's now 18 and just started college. He's a freshman. I don't have the luxury of, if I go on vacation, of just really sitting by the beach and actually not doing anything. I always have my laptop or my phone or something beside me answering my questions from, my eBay buyers or whatnot. And sometimes it gets a little frustrating to those that are around me, but I'm like, I don't work for a company, I work for me. So if I don't sell, I don't eat. So that would probably be the biggest challenge. And then yes, I don't have a big budget to hire this person or to help me out. I do have a couple people that come in, one girl in particular, part-time, and while I've been here, she has access to my house and she can come and she knows how to ship and all of that stuff, and she helps me with the inventory and receiving and whatnot. She also does photography. Sure. I also have she does photography, and then depending on the price point of the item I'm listing, I have another photographer. She's a professional photographer. So those were non-negotiables for me. In order to sell, I have to have the best presentation forward. So any extra money that has to kind of go into that little bucket. And then another thing, selling, I know social media is so important now, and which was a little bit of a hurdle for me to overcome, because I come from a different era where we didn't have social media, and we didn't have this, we didn't have that, so I had to kind of embrace it, but I don't have the time to kind of allocate to that every day. So I thought, okay, what can I do to have a social media team? I kind of got on Fiverr. And I don't know if everyone's
awesome. Cool.
familiar, I'm sure, with Fiverr, which basically you can get anything. The whole concept is you can get anything done for $5, starting at $5, obviously. So, and if there's people that are all across the world, and I found this guy, he had a really good rating, and he's in India. And he does my social media. Now I have to edit before I put it out because of the language barrier rather.
Sure.
But it's taken so much off of me just for him to be able to go to my eBay page and grab my listings and and then I can in the morning look at it, schedule it, and
Sure, and this is a great point. As when I was a solo founder, I found that the most important thing for me was to build, first of all, being a revenue generating business so that I can afford to hire out. But then as I started building my Rolodex of people that I can count on, I would never look for the smartest person per se, because as I said, they're likely at Facebook, Google, Microsoft. The quality that I look for is who's willing to work the hardest and who's willing to go through the learning pains. And so I would bring in folks as interns and so forth and pay them what I could, and we would grow together. And eventually, this intern that I had that I brought in that was helping us build logistics software, eventually I appointed him to CTO later on, and we sold the company together. And when I started Cofound Harlem, my next company, he was a co-founder with me later on. And so I find that the key to being a solo founder is just to surround yourself with as many people as possible to kind of create a team, if you will. You can hire a team, if you will. And so getting now into marketing, oh man, this term marketing is such a big kind of umbrella term. When I first encountered marketing, I didn't really know the difference between that and advertising and social and direct and but in a nutshell, it's how to reach your audience. Your particular audience, where they spend their time, where are their eyeballs, and eventually so that they can buy. And it's such $1 million question, and it's the thing that once we have the product kind of figured out, it's the major hurdle that gets us to the next stage. Maybe we can go down the line here. How do you guys think about marketing, and how do you define it?
I guess my input here, it would be that marketing it's about your ability to resonate with your end user, and I think that people, especially now, forget that our users or your product users, they're real people and they live in real life, right? Today the conversation on marketing has shifted completely to Facebook or Twitter or you're doing Instagram, but that's cool and it's important. But I think that sometimes people prioritize that at the expense of actually getting out and interacting with your community and your end users. So for us, surprisingly enough, in the very beginning, it was, I think, the in-person connections that we made at the community-specific events where our end users were. It allowed us to learn from them. It allowed us to involve them in the process. And then as we got bigger and smarter, we began to organize them more efficiently. At one point, we had over 1,000 active brand ambassadors, just
wow.
being our unofficial street team.
That's amazing.
So, but it was because of being able to connect with people in person, and then obviously you can use social to reiterate or double down on those messages. But I would definitely like to drill on actually talking to and connecting in person.
Paul Graham from Y Combinator, he likes to say, do things that don't scale, right? So at first, I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs so concerned with scalability. I'm like, bro, you don't have 10 customers yet. Do things, get into rooms, meet people, shake hands. And for me, the way I define marketing is getting literally what are the exact steps you're gonna take to get your first customer and your second and your third and so forth. And then eventually when you're swamped, you get to that point where you can think about scaling it out, as you were mentioning. Danny, what about you and your thoughts on marketing? How do you guys figure that?
Right now, we like to have a good connection with our customers. Without them, there's no us. So for that, we send out discount flyers in all our packages.
Sure.
Because they get their package, and in it, it's a discount, 50% off, 20% off, whatever it is. And with that, we get repeat buyers and then they tell their friends. Another big part is customer service, because if they don't like what they got, they're not going to tell everyone else. So we do the best we can with customer service, because if everyone's happy, they tell their friends, and then they come back, they buy more products from us, and they also tell their friends, and their friends buy more products from us. So right now, we're not really on social media at all. We just haven't had time to get to that. So we've just been flyers in the packages. Just how we market ourselves.
And beyond not having time, like you found what's working for you.
Yeah.
Right? Like if it's working for you to put discount flyers in your packages, then like keep doubling down on that. And a buyer's list is so valuable because when you have, I see founders cast super wide nets and they're sitting here, hemorrhaging their current existing customers at the, they're trying to get new ones at the expense of their current ones. And so my philosophy, and I like investing in founders that go deep, right? So if you have 100 customers, make sure those are the happiest 100 customers, and you continue getting them to buy on a recurring basis and so forth, and then slowly you expand out from there. How do you go about marketing, Andrea?
I kind of alluded to it a little earlier. Fortunately, like I said, I sell on eBay, so that's kind of like a built-in,
Sure.
advertising marketing right there. But I do the same thing. I have flyers that I put in each package. Customer service as well. If we have an issue or, a lot of times, you might send the wrong item or whatnot. I make sure I add a little something, like a cosmetic item or whatnot. I'll throw it in the box. In the shipment for the customer, and I'll say, I'm sorry, but I included a couple little goodies for you.
That's cool.
Just kind of, because it could be something worth $1, but everyone just loves getting something extra and something like for free that they perceive as being for free. And I'm on, I am on Instagram and Twitter and whatnot, and I, like I said, we post. I post. I'm so used to saying we, like you said earlier. I always say we are not in, or we'll get back to you, and really it's a lot smaller. So that's why I said we. But anyways, So which now I'll post daily. And I've kind of shifted from Facebook. I have quite a bit of followers on Facebook, but as my son, he always says, nobody's on Facebook anymore, Mom.
They've moved to Snapchat, Mom.
Yeah. So I've kind of tried to move from that to kind of concentrating more on Instagram and Twitter and, Snapchat.
Sure, and one of the things I'm picking up from the conversation is like the fundamentals of business. I think because we're in the high-tech space, a lot of the stuff that successful companies in the last 100, 150 years have done are now considered old school. But in reality, like, I really like looking at retail companies. They know how to sell, right? Like I walk into retail stores, not to buy, just to walk around and just soak in what are the things that they're doing to help move the needle on selling. And customer care is one thing that was mentioned by the both of you guys. I was so serious about customer service at Mobile City because I'm very good at service, but when I started growing the company, I was no longer on the front lines. And one of my customers called me and she said, "John, who the hell do you have at the front desk? Like, do you realize how much money she's costing you?" And so we created a customer care Bible, and I gave them 2 weeks to study this thing from end to end. And I said, "Hey, look, I'm going to be very clear about this. I'm going to test you on it. If you pass the test, you're getting a raise. If you fail, you're getting fired." And I came in that day and I had to let go a few people. But this way, we kind of recreated the culture that was customer obsessed. Yeah. And it's funny because I asked marketing, and each one of you guys stressed kind of getting close to the customer. Yeah. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of folks focused on raising capital, but in reality, your best investor is your customer. So now pivoting over to tools, we all use tools, whether they be software or hardware, what have you. What are some of the things that you guys, maybe the top 1 or 2 tools that you guys use on a constant, recurring basis? For instance, for me, that was MailChimp to build a newsletter. What about for you guys?
That's a great question. on a recurring basis. I don't know. So definitely, I guess the most prevalent tool would be something like Slack. I mean,
Sure.
all of our communication runs through Slack. We try to use it as our single source of like truth and communication, so that we try to pull conversations out of like silos as much as possible. And now it sounds like a Slack commercial, but yeah. So we pull a lot of integrations in through there, and yeah, I'll stop at that, I guess.
Slack.
Yeah, sure.
So we have 3 major tools that we use. One is ShipStation to handle our shipping. We have SKU Vault to handle our inventory so we don't oversell. And also SellActive to handle our pricing, automatic pricing. SKU Vault, it makes sure that we sell more than one site. So to make sure that if we have 10 in stock, we don't sell 5 here, 5 there, and 5 there. It handles all that to make sure that we're selling what we have on hand at the time.
That's SKU Vault.
Yeah, SKU Vault. It connects and speaks to all of our marketplaces.
Wow, that's awesome.
And we have SellerActive, and what they do a few other things, but we use them mostly for our repricing. Because we sell on FBA, and on FBA, you have to have the lowest price in the buy box to win. So everyone's always lowering their price 2 cents, 3 cents. So SellerActive, they can do that for us, so we don't have to go in every day, 3 times a day and do that. So that helps us a lot. And ShipStation just handles all of the orders in one place, and also stores all of the addresses and email addresses, so we could like send out emails to customers, past customers. So those are 3 softwares that we use on a daily basis that are really helpful.
Awesome. Andrea?
And then for me, I think it would be Outright, which is an accounting system by GoDaddy that just pulls all my numbers together, and which when I do my weekly and monthly reports. And it would be Octiva, which is another way to kind of list my items, and it looks a little bit more pulled together, more professional, which kind of gets integrated with eBay. And then the third would be Fiverr, which I talked about a little earlier.
Sure. So I'm just going to ask you guys one last question, and then we'll get into some Q&A from the audience if there is any. But I like to close every panel with just leaving the crowd with one solid nugget that if you had to be remembered on the panel for this one line, what made the biggest impact in starting and growing your company? Starting with Andrea, we'll work our way back.
The biggest impact would be the year, which was probably in 2011, when my sales almost hit 7 figures. So that was it was also very huge aha. Thank you. Because like I said, it's a very, very, very small operation to, maybe to everyone here, I don't know, but to the masses. And because I would have, when I first started working for myself, I had, my friends and family would call me and say, "Oh, you're not doing anything. Can you do so and so for me? You're not doing anything." And I'm like, "Do y'all realize?" So that would probably be just keep on striving, just keep at it. Because like I said, I've had hills and I've had valleys. And, but I'm determined, and like I said, I have a mouth to feed, I have a son and whatnot, and I have to keep on,
Keep on keeping
on.
And those valleys are real deep, aren't they?
Yeah, and I don't want to go back to corporate America.
Sure.
Sometimes he used to say to me, I'd say, "Well, we can't do this because, sales weren't that good this month." And he was like, "Well, why don't you get a real job?" And I'm like, "Boy, are you kidding?" As I look at your iPad, your this, your that, your car, are you kidding me? So, but anyway, so yeah.
Awesome,
yeah.
Thank you.
One big takeaway I want to leave is just jump into it and don't expect that you're going to get rewards right away.
Yeah.
It's going to be months, might be years until something really happens.
Yep.
But you have to work hard every day, not just the first week, but a year later, you should still be working like it's the first day.
Yep.
And then eventually, you're gonna reap the rewards. So just be persistent every day, all day, give it 1,000%, and not be afraid to make sacrifices. Because if you're working in a small company, you're gonna have to, everyone's doing a lot of things all the time. So you're gonna have to do 3 different things every day. And sometimes you might not have enough time in that day, so you might have to do it on the weekend, stay late, So you're gonna have to sacrifice time, you can hang with friends, so you just miss out on a lot of stuff. But don't be afraid to miss out on all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because
Straight up.
Self-motivation.
There's always happy hour.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
always
somewhere
hanging
else,
out.
Yeah.
missing one day of happy hour isn't gonna change your life. So
Sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's a good point. I would say, as a parting thought, just collaborate. I think that I probably sound like a broken record, but I think that as a theme for like this weekend, why I'm so excited to be here is that, you know, it's just an opportunity to invest in each other and bring people into, you know, your journey and in your process. I mean, a lot of people, and they're getting started, and like they have this idea, and it's a brilliant idea, they think, and they don't even want to tell you what it is because they think it's that brilliant. And by all means, it may
We all know those.
it may be brilliant, but how can I help you, right?
Right.
Like, hey, I'm in a position where maybe I can like help you avoid some mistakes that I've made or
Sure.
figure some things out, scale this quicker. But if you're not willing and of the mindset to collaborate, bring other people into your journey, invest in others, and allow them to invest in you, it's really to your detriment. So I hope that's just a theme for the weekend in general.
Sure. I think my nugget would be probably the first real business lesson I learned. It's something that I tell all my portfolio founders, and that is there's riches in niches. There's riches in niches. So the most common pitfall I see founders face by far as I get pitched on a constant basis for investment is this whole idea where young founders are trying to boil the ocean. And it's like, dude, you can't be everything to everybody because then you end up being nothing to anyone. So if you close in on something that you decide you're gonna be the absolute best at, and don't be afraid to be like hyper specific. Right, so as I mentioned earlier, while my competition they were killing themselves in the on-demand dry cleaning space for $40 transactions going B2C, I saw a lane here and I went B2B and I focused just on film and TV. And the telltale sign of a niche is that individuals know individuals. So meaning like they all hang out together and they'll say, hey, this guy Henry, you gotta check them out, you gotta use this thing. So whatever that is for you guys, and whatever your respective companies that you're looking to start, don't be afraid to go really, really, really specific.